All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tavern Talk, episode 4. Uh, this is a podcast about gaming for gamers by gamers. My name is Sarge, and as always, I am here with my partner today, the Scourge of Eberron, the Ghost of Tamriel, and the man. Oops, hold on. The man who taught Elvis the pelvic thrust.
That can't
Warhammer
be true.
Axwell.
Hey, welcome in, Neutral.
How,
Almost,
how are you
almost
today, my
old
friend?
enough.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing good, doing good. So today is episode 4. Again, we're still concentrating on the segment of gaming and streaming in 2024. This is an open forum. We encourage all participants to please go through and post your questions in chat. It is a round table. It's no different than we're all sitting in a pub drinking beer and having a good time. So Warhammer and myself will go through and do the best that we can to go through and field all of your questions. Good afternoon, Punk. So with us today is our special guest. He is Standing Stone Games community manager for Dungeons and Dragons Online, for Lord of the Rings Online. He also streams on the official DDO Twitch stream Fridays at 4 and the official Lotro stream as Court of the Rings. Please welcome in Cordovan. Cordo,
Yeah,
how are
thanks
you
so much
today?
for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm having a good time. We just released our expansion today on the DDO side and a game update on the Lotro side, and we're just getting ready to launch our seasonal event on the Lotro side tomorrow. We just got a new
Nice.
reward track on the Lotro side, so things kind of rocking and rolling inside of the office here this week.
Yeah, you guys have been really busy. Speaking of the Lotro and the DDO, so Lotro went through and released two legendary servers, Angmar and Mordor.
Yep.
Nice, nice. And on the DDO side, you guys released today, which I know you guys got to be busy, and I really appreciate you
Yep.
being here on release day. But you released today the expansion Magic of Myth Draenor.
Yep, that's correct. And that just went live a couple of hours ago. So people are really going in game right now as we speak and running through the quests for the first time and checking things out.
Nice.
And I'm normally pretty busy at this time, keeping an eye on all the forums and Reddits and Discords.
Yes.
Try to keep an eye even on World Chat a little bit and escalate any bugs and things that come into me. And just overall keep an eye on what's going on here throughout the day. And then tonight, after all this work's done, I'm going to be able to kind of log in and play it myself. So
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, I appreciate you. I know you're busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time. Let's take a look. We got a new release today from on the DDO side for a released trailer. So let's take a look real quick and let's watch the trailer.
I have roamed this city, biding my time, waiting for them to inevitably return to me. My anticipation of the threat they have foreseen hangs over me. It will be soon. A flicker from the missile tells me all I need to know. I am ready.
That looks really cool.
I lied again. I
That,
didn't actually watch it, but I am the person who uploaded it, so I've already seen it.
that
Yeah.
that's actually really cool. I got Zarmi that's asking in chat. What are you all most excited about the Myth Draenor expansion?
It's really the ability to release all this new content to the community. This has been months and months of work from us. The teams are working very hard to expand into the Forgotten Realms here. We have been in the Forgotten Realms before, but it's been a little while. And we're really we are also increasing our level cap with this expansion here. So people have a new end game, so to speak,
Right.
and a lot happening. And so it's been the culmination of a lot of work. So this is really the time. You don't get to celebrate until after you know that you don't have some kind of big hot fix you got to do the next day. But we're in the
Right.
process of giving everything the all clear this afternoon. So far, everything seems to be going well, and it's just really nice to be able to have this release and have it hit the community, have people enjoy it, and us get to kind of celebrate that all that work that we did. So
Okay. Nice. I got Dan Dunk 777 asking. He's excited about his monster manual being fixed. This is number one priority.
monster manual being fixed. Um,
Dan
not
Dunk,
sure.
can you
Oh
elaborate a
yes,
little bit
yes,
on that?
yes. Dan Donk. Okay, sorry, I was doing something there. So there is been a long-standing issue with the reincarnations or with the character transfer system, where if you've earned account level rewards on one world and then you undergo a character transfer to a different world, uh, there you can have those account rewards not function. So you get in a state where
Mm,
because you've already claimed them on the old world, you can't claim them on the new. And because you've already claimed them, you can't re-earn them. So what we're really talking about to resolve that bug is a re-engineering of our monster manual system, and
okay.
that's something that is a very large task on the part of engineers, and it's been something we've been wanting to do for, well, some number of years now, frankly. But it's not on our agenda to correct anytime soon because it's a big project and it has to compete with all the other priorities. And although it's something we definitely want to get done, I wouldn't expect to see a fix for that anytime soon.
Okay. All right.
So your voice is very unique. You sound to me very much like the original host of DDO Cast. Are you one and the same?
I am, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was me way back in the day
Way
doing that.
back.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I remember.
I actually started even earlier back in the day when I was a mid teenager doing dipping my toes into radio and managed to have a small local radio career in the upper Midwest.
Okay.
And I did that for a number of years, and then I became a radio
Welcome in,
journalist
Nacho.
and
Welcome in,
actually
Raiders.
worked as a radio news reporter for what was essentially Westwood One's national radio news wire. They were called Metro Networks back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I did that then for about a decade. And then the changing industry of radio itself with the iPod
Hey,
coming
Mikey.
out, being the biggie, that and the little thing called an iPhone, really devastated the employment
Thank you, Nacho.
structure of radio, and I found myself without a career, or without much of a career, or one that was quickly deteriorating, and so I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, and I got very lucky that I was able to, in part due to that podcast, get hired at Standing Stone Games, and now that's been 13 years now, and I'm lucky to be able to do this. So
Yeah, that's awesome. You definitely have a very good radio voice. That you already answered my next question. I was going to say, how was your experience with hosting DDO Cast for so very long, and did it lead into becoming the community manager for DDO? Which it did. That's awesome. How
it was
long?
a great crash course in what it actually takes to do this kind of creative effort, like Tavern Talk, the podcast. You think it's like, well, it's just me talking into a mic, right? And then I'm just hitting record, and then I don't know, like upload it and
Thank you,
stuff, and then
Princess.
it's just done, right? No, no, it ends up being a project, not a part time job, but not a part-time job either. And it's really enjoyable because of the rewards you receive from it. But at the same time, it is a big change in your life to really kick off something like that and see some level of success with it, which we did back in the DDO Cast podcast back in the day. We hit right as podcasts were really becoming established in the ecosystem of our culture, and we were seeing lots and lots of downloads every week. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I know, speaking from just doing the podcast, I mean, as soon as this episode is done, Warhammer and I, this isn't a part-time thing. Warhammer and I, the next day, as a matter of fact, as soon as this is done, him and I generally sit down and do, a review as to what was good and bad. But the next day, we're working on the next episode.
Yeah.
Working on coordinating with the guest and coming up with our questions and stuff like that. So I mean, it's by no means a part time fly by night kind of thing. It's something that you have to plan. So I can understand where you're coming from.
Yep.
So
But it was fun. I got to meet all sorts of people. I got to go to Gen Con and hang out with other DDO players. We got to kick off really
yeah,
what has become a tradition of Gen Con meetups and community meetups on the DDO side. Got to meet Tolero through that. She actually got hired first, and then I was hired after, sometime after she was hired. So, I was
yeah,
able to sort of see that happen. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many fun things. And getting to finally meet the team and learn a little bit about how you actually make an MMO circa that era, and then being able to see it from the inside now is a dream come true. It really is.
nice, nice. Well, I mean, we have a thing here that's been going on for this being our fourth episode. We like to label certain games as legacy games. All right, and typically, what a legacy game is it is a game that has become, for a lack of a better way to say it, generational. All right, that has been around for a decade or more. That is continually going through and drawing in audiences. That is continuing and putting out new products, such as, all right, obviously the big names: World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online. Then you got Dungeons and Dragons Online. What is it, in your opinion, what is it that you feel is the contributing factor behind the success of Dungeons and Dragons Online and Lotro Online, um, that has kept such a fierce, loyal audience over the years? That has pushed you guys to continue to keep putting out more content.
There could be quite a few answers to that question, and I think that ultimately the answer is the combination of all the answers you would get to that question. And by that I mean it's a combination. There's some business side of it too, right? Being able to make the money
Right,
work. There's the investment and human resources side of it, being able to keep the employees and teams and knowledge base together.
right.
There's the player base side itself. Are there people showing up and interested? Have they created
Hmm.
their own culture within our game? Yes, and yes. That's a big part of it as well. The ability to develop long term, like we're able to do, is a big key factor. The way the industry itself has grown since the mid 2000s to incorporate that kind of business structure itself. I mean, it wasn't that long before the mid 2000s that you worked on a game, the game got released, then you essentially disbanded the team and went on to a different game. you
Hmm.
know and there was this whole cultural mindset that really changed in the 2000s, where the idea of, no, this is a game that's come out, and because you continue to support it, you continue to allow it to develop and grow year after year after year and become these kind of things that could never be done if it was, once you've crossed that finish line of release, the game is done, right? And so there's a whole bunch of factors involved, but really it comes down to talent, very careful management of resources, an
Mhm.
exciting, active, passionate community that not only enjoys what we do, but makes their own community out of it. Um, and a changing cultural landscape and the way that people interface with video games in general. I think those are probably the four biggest factors that allow us to create long
Right.
term, like we've been able to do, we and others, like you point out, have been able to do in a way that really had never been possible. It had been possible in the past through sequelization, right? There was a Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3 and
Right.
4 and all that sort of thing, but not in the, no, it's this game, the one that you're currently playing. We can continue to have a team of dozens, if not hundreds of people, and continue to make this go month after month long term, as long as there is that a willingness to continue to pay for it.
Right. Well, that's a good thing. Hold on one second. War. Your camera blurred out again, and you
Yeah.
tried to speak earlier. Okay, I just want to
Yep.
make sure your mic was still working.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the camera again. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
I would
Um,
also say there's some authenticity to it as well, and I don't
right.
want to brag. I don't want to. I want to come across humble appropriately, but I think that with the Lord of the Rings Online, us being able to really manifest Tolkien's book written world in a very authentic way is a
Uh-huh.
big part of Lotro's success, and our ability to make a very Dungeons and Dragons feeling Dungeons and Dragons online game, perhaps in a way that hadn't been done all that often prior to us showing up, although it had been to some extent. It's not like we're
Right.
the first, but I think our level of authenticity for both games has also played a big role in our ability to continue long term.
Well, the in my opinion, the advantages of being able to have a game that lasts for so long, and instead of, to your point, of coming out with, Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, but you go through and you do expansions, you can it gives you the opportunity to continue a storyline, a story arc, if you will, that will also continue to allow you to go through and draw in your audience. What is happening with, Stormreach. um, I could show you something real quick, but what is happening with Stormreach, and why is it that, the drone have gone through and attacked? But I wanted to show you something real quick. I have on my desk one of the original discs,
Oh, nice.
all right,
Yep.
where it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
actually labeled Stormreach.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
You know, so that's one of my DDO collectibles. But anyway, it's I'm sorry, excuse me. It is an advantage, and I think from that perspective that you can go through and continue with that arc that absolutely keeps your audience invested.
Yeah. Yeah, we tell lots of stories on the DDO side. So but on the Lotro side in particular, we have a lot of long term story arcs. Not that
Mhm.
we don't do it on the DDO side either, but I think we really do more of it on the Lotro side with our
Mhm.
storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2020 during COVID, DDO saw growth in its player base and Twitch viewership. How do you feel that SSG has fared with player retention and interest since those times?
In some ways, that is a question that is probably better answered by someone at the executive level. I have to be careful as to what I would say about something like that. Um, but we've worked very hard since COVID to retain our audience, and I think we've
Mhm.
been successful in many, many ways of being able to do
Mhm.
that. Um, while also understanding that, like the COVID time was a bit of a bubble. There are cultural things that happen where suddenly everyone is staying home. Well, when people tend to stay home by themselves or with small groups for a long period of time, they tend to play a lot of video games, as it turns out.
Mhm.
And I think that the industry itself saw some real um, the ability to weather COVID itself, in part due to the revenue and user retention and ability willingness of people to engage with that content at that time, right? So there's going to be a little bit of a natural drop off as people start going back outside and start going to work and start, taking their dog to the dog park every Saturday afternoon again and all that sort of thing. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. So, you have to sometimes be careful that you always want it up and to the right, but just because it might slightly go down after, say, something like COVID happens, doesn't mean that you're a failure. That just is the natural ebb and flow of the ecosystem. And so the real question then is, how do you
Right,
fare
Mikey?
compared to your expected ebb and flow? And we've been doing just fine there, just fine. But I can't get into any further detail about kind of how it's progressed.
Totally understandable.
Yep.
Totally understandable. And I think that encapsulates the answer perfectly. So in my opinion, I feel like Twitch is the best approach at successful marketing of games today in the gaming space. How does DDO and Lotro hold up in that arena? Do you think that there's possibly something more you guys could do to?
There's always more. There's always more.
Okay.
The answer at any question is there more? The answer is yes. There's
Okay.
always more, and everything that you want to do, you could always do more. More money, more time, more people, more. You could always do more. And there are more things that we want to do on Twitch, both for DDO and Lotro. We're working on organizing a more solid content creator program that's actually funneled through a couple of people, one on the Daybreak publisher side and one on the SSG side, where we can actually bring on a lot more variety streamers and reach out to people who have large audiences but aren't necessarily streaming our game, not because they don't know about it or because they don't want to, but because of the way they tend to do their operation. It's who's reaching out to me and who's collaborating with me, and do I have freebies I can give out, and what's the infrastructure there. So there's a lot we can do, and we are going to be doing here for both games. But I think in many ways, if you think about Twitch turning 10 years old now, yes, it's been almost a decade since Twitch started firing up. I think that we've done very well in both DDO and Lotro, and there are probably quite a few games that were of our vintage that would love to have the audience and community that we currently have on Twitch. That said, we ain't pulling in Fortnite numbers. We're not pulling
Right.
in PUBG numbers or anything like that. So it tends to be a community that is more of the Lotro and DDO player base, but that's fine. In the same way that a podcast doesn't have to necessarily advertise to everybody, it can be for whoever it is. Our streaming presence has also been a great source of community building, and a bunch of people in the community who maybe are less comfortable on the forums in some cases, but they love in their time on Twitch, and a lot of people use both too. But um, it's
Well, I
been
mean,
good
and
because it's created a community, it's sustained a community. We have streamers, we got players, we have hundreds of people watching pretty much at any given moment. And I think that that's the kind of thing that a lot of games would love to have, that kind of community and self-sustaining support. But it wasn't easy. We carved our niche in the Twitch landscape by creating these, you could almost call them public access channels. These DDO stream and Lotro stream channels that we created was really an effort to. We had people who wanted to stream the games and they were streaming on Twitch, but they weren't really finding the audience because the audience didn't know they were there at that exact time. So the audience wasn't really finding the people, and the people weren't really finding the audience. And so we brought that together with DDO Stream and Lotro Stream, these channels where it's like, yes, this is the official company channel, but you can stream on it. And by doing that, we were able to give the community a jumping off point. It's like, well, I can at least go here and find someone streaming Lotro, and that Lotro streamer could go into that chat and meet those people and bring them back to their audience. And years of doing that has really fostered and created the success that we've had on Twitch. But it was a
well,
very manual process, and it was
well,
not the easiest thing in the world.
I do have a tendency to agree with you. However, I don't have the figures in front of me right now. I know War was the main one that pointed them out previously. You know, you're speaking about going through and having the community on Twitch for both games, okay?
Hmm.
And you know, if you look at the metrics for DDO specifically, if you look at the metrics, the viewership, the watch, all right, has been slowly, but it's been slowly declining. All right,
Okay.
contributed that to the age of the game, the more games, more what you know, more technologically advanced as far as graphics, whatever the case may be. You know, they've been going down, but there's no advertisement outside that I have seen really, other than the social media which you yourself go through and post. Your biggest, from what I'm able to see, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but your biggest advertisement are your streamers. So wouldn't it make sense from a business perspective to utilize those streamers and work with Twitch, work with Kick to go through to bring in more people, to bring in, you know, be it offering drops. You know, you go through a lot, all the credit to
Yeah.
you, and you're giving out codes so people can do raffles on their streams for DDO points for whatever the case may be. But if you started to go through and invest a little bit into your main source of advertisement by going through and offering drops or something of that nature, wouldn't that in turn go through and be more beneficial to SSG from a financial aspect because more players equals more money, which means more people in the store, doing the VIPs, doing whatever the case may be, and help to bring a breath of life into a game that is 18 years old.
There's a couple of things I saw on that response. The first is that is in part the goal of the content creator program that we're doing is to help foster that further um, linkage between our marketing team and the streamers
Mhm.
who are of a
Okay.
certain size, who are of a certain audience, who are able to get out there and drive those numbers, right? So that is in fact the goal of this content creator program. The second part though is on Twitch drops specifically. In order to have Twitch drops, you have to integrate the Twitch API into your game engine. And integrating the Twitch API into our game engine is something that we have kicked around for years now. We've
Okay.
had some engineers take a look at it, and it is possible to get done. But it tends to be one of those ideas that can open a can of worms, which is okay, well, if we bring in the Twitch API, how much is it going to cost? What's the revenue going to be coming in from this? And then if we're doing Twitch, should we also do YouTube? Should we also do this? Should we also do this? And then you start thinking about, well, really what you're looking at then is integrating the ability to plug in a dozen different APIs from all the different social media networks and things like that into your game engine itself and be able to maintain those licenses and everything else that needs to be done there. So, like the idea of, well, just put in Twitch drops and do Twitch drops. Yeah, it's great. All I got to do is hit the button, but that's after a couple of years worth of work.
All right.
So it's the process to get there is something that I think we could do someday. I don't There's definitely a lot of positives, and I've heard some real positives from people who are talk about the success that they've seen with Twitch drops. But I inside of the industry, the metrics I have seen, which is not many, because people tend to be insular about this, is you have to ask yourself, okay, let's look at this on the numbers and cents. How much are we spending? How many people are we reaching? How many of those people who reach sign up? How many of people who sign up actually spend? How many, you do all this
Mhm.
actual
Mhm.
work that's involved in order to make a smart business decision on that. And we just haven't been able to justify adding Twitch drops to this point. But it's also been the fact that we have a certain engineering team who has a lot on their plate. On the
Oh
Lotro
yeah.
side, we just launched our first 64-bit game servers,
Mhm.
and that was a project that also took several years and has just come into fruition in recent weeks. We
Mhm.
have our first European located data center for the Lotro server in Mortar. That was a huge engineering task that took, at least a year, really from start to finish to make happen. And there's a whole bunch of things like that throughout both games. And so
Mhm.
trying to say, well, add Twitch drops into that. Okay, let's maybe someday. But the core of what you're saying, which is, how do we better integrate the content creator community and use them as our voice to spread the message of our games, is absolutely the top goal of our content creator program. And it's what we
Okay.
do, like you say, in a very guerrilla style right now.
Well, I mean, truth be told, and this is just a poke in the ribs, a playful poke in the ribs to you, Cordo. I tried to sign up for that creator to stream on the DDO, and yeah, let me know what time. I never heard back from you.
Well, you wouldn't hear back from me. That's the first thing. I'm not in charge of this program, so you
Well,
would hear back from other people. But
I even
yes,
went through
yep,
and did it through the email, just as it said to go through and do,
yeah.
did it through the email system. I never heard anything back.
It's a long term application, right?
Oh,
So
sure,
it's not the kind of
sure.
thing that
I'm
you're
just playing
necessarily
with
going
you.
to hear back from a week for a month. But the other thing is, there was a time we were hoping to have it launched a little bit earlier than it is going to turn out to be. There was a time we were
Yeah.
hoping to have it ready by, say, sometime this summer, maybe as a rough goal, and we just are nowhere near that yet.
Yeah.
But we've also seen the program have quite a bit of success already on the Daybreak publisher side through Magic the
Mhm.
Gathering Online, and I believe they've done some work on DCUO Online. So eventually, as this gets through to all the titles and all that sort of thing, we will see the gains from that, but we're just not ready yet.
Right. Okay. Can you give us in the community as to there have been a lot of issues, and a lot of people have been talking about it and complaining about it. Um, as of, and I'm stealing one of your questions, War. Um, as of uh, as of late, there seems to be more so on the DDO side, significant amount of downtime, extended downtime. All right, and I mean your player base, while very loyal, justifiably, they want to play the game that they want to play. They love playing the game. They have played it for many years, but you go through and have technical issues, constant issues. Is there any means, if you're wanting to go through and grow continually, to be able to upgrade your databases? All right. And obviously, I have no clue when it comes to what kind of servers, how old your servers are. The common joke is it's time for you to guys to go through and replace your kobolds. But is there anything in the works for DDO itself to go through and upgrade, and any kind of accountability to your community as to why there is so much downtime as of late?
We've so I got the impression from the way you presented that you feel that we have not necessarily actually done a lot of communication, but we in fact I feel have, and we have talked quite a bit about what's been the nature of these downtimes in recent months.
Mhm.
But it's true. It's true. It sucks, but it's true.
Yeah.
We have had a lot of downtimes over the past, say, 8-10 weeks, in particular, and it's been a real bummer. It's a combination of factors. We do weekly maintenance at our data centers, and throughout the process, it takes somewhere in the range of maybe, if you're absolutely everything's firing and rocking it, maybe about 2 hours, and then up to about
Mhm.
3 to 4 on the other side. Um, and we've been doing that. But the problem with the hardware is there's not just stuff you need to do every week, right? The every week stuff can be whatever it is, server OS style updates and a quick reboot, and you check the health of all the various aspects of your game environment, and then have the QA folks go in. Can they make a purchase? Can they zone between zones? Does kinship housing work? And you do the white glove you got to do, and then you reopen the game worlds. But there's also things that need to take place that are like once a quarter you gotta you got to replace those dilithium crystals in there,
Hmm.
and once every 6 months you got to do X and you got to do Y, and once a year you have to do Z as well. And
Right.
then there are times where things just go bad all of a sudden, where it's like, well, crap,
A
we
glitch in the
just lost a
matrix.
node over on this server, and this
Yeah.
happened that, and we've been plagued with a bunch of those in the past 8 to 10 weeks, right? So a lot of it is longer term maintenance work we've been needing to do. Some of it is unexpected issues that we had to respond to. Some of it
Hmm.
is kind of quarterly and yearly work that we had to do. Some of it is some longer term project work that are needing to be done, related to everything from like server certificates all the way up to
Hmm.
some elements that will eventually be the 64-bit servers. There's a bunch of things that have to happen there. We've just been plagued with a whole bunch of it over the past 8 to 10 weeks in particular. But we are mostly on the other side of that now, and
Hmm. Good.
thankfully. And so the number of unexpectedly long downtime should taper off here, for the foreseeable future. So
Okay. Well, we're gonna hold you to
we're never going to
that.
have lag again.
So, so I just had a question reference that.
Yeah.
So, are there any plans to maybe perhaps kind of mirror what Lotro has done with the 64-bit, or
Yes.
any hardware
Yes.
improvements coming to DDO?
Yes. Absolutely. The same. There is absolutely a plan. It's Lotro's going first, but there is a plan, in fact, to make 64-bit server improvements on the DDO side.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. And I think that part of the reason that has been accelerated really just in the past week or so is we did launch the 64-bit servers on Angmar and Mordor. And while
Hmm.
there are other aspects of lag besides whether you're 32-bit or 64-bit, there's a million other factors, but it's looking and playing real nice on
It
Angmar
is.
and Mordor on Lotra side. And so we want
It
to get
is.
that out as to everything else as quick as we can.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while though. So.
Yeah, a lot of the
It is.
streamers I've noticed have been reviewing it and have been singing its praises on the Lotro hemisphere with the
Yep.
64-bit.
Yeah. I went through. I went through about 2 weeks ago, and I just started playing Locho for the first time, and I went on a random server, and there was a lot of there was a lot of lag. Okay, it wasn't DDO scale lag, but there was a lot of lag. All right, and I got to the point where I enjoyed it enough that I went through and I was like, happened to be on the Lotro site, and I saw the announcement about the legendary servers and going 64-bit, and I was like, you know what, I like it enough, let's give it a try. And I went through and did the VIP and joined Angmar, and last night I was playing it, and no issues. I mean, it ran so smooth. It was nice. It was real nice going through and
Yeah.
playing it. So it's making me want to go through and play some more. And it's also, now that you're saying that the plan is eventually to go through and get DDO servers the same way. You know, I'm looking forward to that. Now, will
Yeah.
you go through and create brand new DDO servers, or and
Mm.
allow migration into them, or is
That's a
that
very
something
good
that will?
question, and that actually brings me to the second point, which is that there is a big caveat on that performance gain, which I can get to in a second. But
Huh?
the answer is we don't know yet. Ultimately, we will need to make those decisions in however long it takes before we would be ready to open up the 64-bit server. My Yeah, I wouldn't even want to speculate at this point about what we could do, because we could do a bunch of things. So I just can't answer that part because we don't know at this point. But I would say that here's that caveat though. The nice thing about Angmar and Mortar is everyone is on fresh characters,
Hmm.
and that really cannot be discounted. Heading into this process, we've worked for a couple of years now to make sure the game is communicating better with itself, and we've seen a lot of gains. I know people sometimes are like, well, you're still laggy and it's been kind of crappy it's worse than ever, whatever. We've made improvements. You know, you've made improvements because it's like, well, here is the hitching report, and now we have 1,000 fewer of them. So that is an improvement, even
Right.
if you're still seeing lag exists on the forums, right? So over the course of years, the last couple of years, we've made some significant improvements. And heading into this, there are two big pillars that are in the process of being tackled. One of them is that 64-bit architecture. But the other thing is, I hear it called inside of the office serialization. But what that means essentially is your character, your account's data footprint. How many quests have you run? How much crap do you have in your bank? How much favor do you have? How much everything do you have?
Right.
And how is that stored? And does it need to be loaded every time you load that character into the game? How much of that's being loaded when you go from one zone to the rest? How much of that's being loaded every time you complete a raid or quest? And that is the other big pillar that we need to tackle. So I think if we were to, and this isn't probably technically possible, but let's just say I was able to snap my fingers and all of a sudden start loaning on the DDO side as 64-bit. I don't think you would see the same kind of improvement that you saw on Angmar and Mortar, because that would only be one piece of the puzzle. And the other thing is that on Angmar and Mortar, you don't have those mega bloated characters who have been playing for 15, 18 years, building up that serialization footprint and data footprint that needs to be tackled. And that's a much thornier issue, but it is also one that we have solutions for, and our engineering team is working on to make improvements to as well. So
Would
there's
you be
hope
able to
there.
have the capability on those legendary servers to go through, say you wanted to go through and do your racial completionist?
Well, we're talking about two different things. Their racial completionist isn't really on a legendary world because it's DDO, not Lotro, right? But uh, if we were to do a fresh server on the DDO side, we would have to deal with the transfer question. Do you start fresh like on Angmar and Mordor, and then everyone is starting fresh, or do you allow transfers in and the associated problems that it can cause? On Angmar and Mordor, it makes sense not to allow transfers in because the nature of those servers is progression servers. If the
Right.
only bullet point were it's 64-bit, then you probably wouldn't be doing a progression server thing with it. And so it'd just be an outstanding
Right.
question we'd have to answer.
Would you do progressions, potentially a progression server? And I know there's a lot of things that are out there, and I know this is kind of a hypothetical, but is the hmm, is the discussion uh, about potentially with the 64-bit on DDO about doing a progression server as well?
I haven't heard any discussions along that route.
No?
That's not
Okay.
to say it could never happen, but to date on DDO, we have tended to operate a little differently in many ways from many other MMOs, up to and including our hardcore leagues, which in some ways are a little bit like the legendary worlds, but also totally
Mhm.
not. And
Right.
so I don't know that a semi-traditional progression server would necessarily be the route we would go on DDO. Who knows, though? Ultimately, that's a call for people above my pay grade, but I don't really see it happening anytime soon.
No. Okay.
Because the game works a little different, right? It just
Right.
structurally, the game works a little different. So
Right. Right.
Our last episode, we had a segment about AI in the gaming industry. Is SSG entertaining any of those potential integrations of utilizing AI in the game space or to help with the creative processes?
not that I've seen. We don't. We take pride in the fact that we're a handcrafted studio with handcrafted games and people making games. So uh, it's not really a part of our tool
I know,
set.
Todd.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. It's good to hear.
I'm sure some marketing person at some point has used Chat GPT to fill out a PowerPoint or something like that. But in terms of like actual like game development, right?
Yeah.
We're not really utilizing. We're not utilizing AI that I'm aware of. I
Okay.
just don't think we are. I think though to your question though is AI a big deal in the games industry? Yes, it's the biggest deal.
Yes.
It's that
Yeah.
it's that iPhone and iPad when you're working radio in 2005 is what it is.
Right.
Where you're just like all of a sudden it's like, well, this could kill everything. At the very least, it could change everything, and it probably will. Um, my experience is that, like, if you think about when the internet first came out, there were people who, in maybe the early 90s, who were saying things like, the internet is going to kill
I agree, Todd.
creativity, it's going to kill art, it's going to kill writing, it's going to kill work. How many people are going to lose their jobs because of the internet? And I
Mhm.
think what we found is they weren't in fact actually all that wrong. A whole bunch of people did lose their jobs because the internet replaced the
Yep.
tasks that they were doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the internet is a bad thing. In the same way that I think we're at such an early stage with AI that we tend to have AI good, AI bad. But by the time it's actually ingrained itself into your habits of life, you won't even think about it. So
Right.
will we use AI in game development in the future? Probably, and we won't even be thinking about it. It'll just be in the tools that we're all using. It'll be in those sound editors and cell phones and computers and uh, planning documents and everything else that we're using. It's just going to integrate itself into a society in a way that it's not going to be a binary. Am I using the AI button? No. Am I
Yeah.
using AI? Yes. That's probably how it's going to end up being. So,
I- I've got a couple comments in chat. All I hear in text space is AI, AI, AI. This is from Todd Libby, and Chat GPT, and DDO doesn't need it. Doesn't need it. And Mikey Geek agrees and says, "I would think that DDO's code is too complex and touchy for AI to help."
yep. I can tell you
So
as a community manager, this has been the year where my AI, this past year was the first time someone mimicked my voice using an AI kind of voice thing to have me say things that were
huh.
not very nice. And it was the to hear your own voice coming through a YouTube video with your face on it.
Yeah.
You're allegedly having your mouth move, even though it didn't really look authentic, right? It's still got that kind of weird fourth wall thing or whatever. But even it was weird as heck to see that coming and to be like, what? Oh my god! So
Well, let me
yeah.
go. Let me go through and click this button, and then you guys can hear it from Cordo himself that the next patch coming out, the monster manual will be fixed, and everyone will be playing virtual reality DDO. The next expansion.
Yeah, virtual reality would be neat, but I don't see that happening really anytime soon either. It's really a user
I'm not in shape
interface
enough
issue.
for it.
Yeah.
I'm not in
Well,
shape enough for
I'm a bit
virtual
of a
reality.
VR enthusiast myself. I haven't don't use it so much lately, but I've been into the PSVR and I checked out the Vive and Oculus Go and Oculus Rift and then the MetaQuest 1 and 2. My son's into VR too right now, so I actually think the VR space is pretty neat. And I've seen people play DDO in VR as well. But there's a very
Yeah.
specific issue with the way that in a traditional computer game, the user interface is just right up in your face when you try to use a translation program to put it on VR. You all of a sudden have
Yeah.
your hotbars literally just always in front of your face in a way that just doesn't function. And the process to solve that would be probably more than we'd ever make selling VR copies of our games.
Well, you go through and you see these videos all the time of these people going through and running into their TV screen and all that kind of stuff. That would be me. So I'm staying away from VR.
Yeah, it's neat.
um, we've got about 10 minutes left on stream. War, have you gotten any feedback over on your stream?
um, so I had one question, and the Mooseman7 asked, "How's the company overall doing?" I think he means probably Standing Stone Games. Will center on the Dungeons and Dragons side of that hemisphere.
I really can't get into numbers or figures or finances, but I can give you a totally corporate approved PR statement that everything's going awesome.
That
So,
works. That works.
yeah. But things are going good. They're going good for us. Both Mordor and Angmar have been a big success. Magic of Myth Drannor seems to be on the cusp. I mean, we did just fine in terms of pre-sales, and people are having a good time there. So
Mhm.
things seem all good.
Yeah, I have been So I took a 14-year break from the game. So I played heavily from 2006 to 2009. I just came back recently this past February, and I'm actually really impressed with a lot of the newer content, especially Myth Draenor, with just how they've modernized the game world a little bit with the way the Eladrin look, the way some of the zones look, but yet it still has that feel of integrating perfectly and meshing very well with the old game. But a lot of the like spell effects and graphical effects, they've really ramped them up. So hats off to the development team for sure.
Yep. We do try to improve as much as we can over time, and we'll see what we can do in the future. We've had stops of various big proposals to like really overhaul UI and things like that. It'll happen someday, though. It will.
I've got a two-part question from Todd Libby. Um, do we see the cult of Moander? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Moander in the Myth Draenor expansion, and when do we see Thay and Unapproachable East as an expansion in Faerun?
I don't know the answer to your first question. Um, Mostly because I haven't run all of the quests yet, so I don't actually know every little detail of all the stories yet.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm gonna say I don't recall hearing that name, but that doesn't mean that Knockback or someone didn't put them in. In
Okay.
terms of location, any place is possible in theory. Where we go in the Forgotten Realms tends to be a conversation we have with our various license holders and everyone. So it's a complex discussion to say, well, can we go to X, Y, or Z? Could we go to Thay? Sure, maybe, but we don't have any actual announced plans at this point that I could talk at all
Okay.
about. So.
One last question here from my side. Is there any kind of and I know you're very limited, you know, and so I'm not going to hold you to any kind of specifics, but is there any kind of potential spoilers or plans for DDO that you could share with our audience today without losing your job?
Uh, because we just released Magic of Myth Draenor, the amount of secrets I have is relatively tapped out because as of this afternoon, you can see it.
Okay.
Uh,
I will not.
however, let me think about that. I'm sure there's something. So we are working on another sort of event-like experience for later this year that we'll have more information about in the coming weeks. We last year in the fall we did the Illithid Invasion event, and what we're planning to do next is actually quite a bit different from that,
Okay.
but is maybe in that general vein in terms of we're doing some kind of event like thing later this year.
Okay.
Next, however, really is going to be the previewing and release of our raid for Magic of Myth Trainer. The content launches today, but it doesn't have the next raid yet. The raid is being built by a group of people on the DDO team, and it'll be getting its first preview a couple of weeks from now, and should be releasing here in the near future. And that's really
Nice.
about all I could say. Anything else, I don't
Okay.
know that I'm
I got
comfortable being able to say at this point.
several people just went through and asked, so, any plans on hardcore anytime soon? And is there any plans for hardcore within the next year?
We don't have any plans for the hardcore server at this time.
Okay.
That really is the same thing that was stated in the producer's letter earlier this year from our producer, Tolero. It's in our toolkit. It's something we can always do again. At the moment, we've been focusing on other experiences, other
Okay.
events, other things. I'm sure hardcore is going to be coming back. But at the moment, we're taking a break from it.
Okay.
Yep.
War?
Yeah, no, I would just like to thank Cordo for all your time, and I really appreciate the very, very candid responses. It's been excellent, and
Well, thank you.
I'm glad you confirmed my suspicions that you are the original DDO cast. co-host. I always
You
wondered.
know, I've never been famous, but very rarely, like in radio, in particular when I was doing that local radio, very rarely someone would catch it, and that's why, because my voice is a little on the odd side, and I'd be talking at a grocery store, and then all of a sudden I'd see someone ears like they do that weird head bob. They like be like, yeah, I could get it coming. They'd be like, do you work for WAXX or something like that? I'd be like, yeah, I do. They'd be like, oh, I listen to you every morning,
Yeah.
It was fun.
Just
Yeah.
to circle back to an earlier segment where you talked about community. So
Thank
I
you,
actually met you at the recent PAX meetup at the tavern, and that was outstanding, being able to interact with the developers and seeing how both of the hemispheres of the community, both Lotro and DDO, how just nice of a community it really was, especially coming back to the game after 14 years away. I was kind of standoffish, but everybody was so welcoming and so just genuine. It was such a great time. I think that DDO and Lotro both have very, very unique niche communities that you don't find anywhere else in a lot of these other games.
Yeah, for sure. It's absolutely true.
Cozy says she's the one that talked you into coming.
She is the one that talked me into coming. I wasn't gonna go. I'm shy, so.
So with that being said, we're just about out of time. War, you want to close us up?
Yeah, I just want to thank Cordo for taking time out of his day to come and appear on Tavern Talk. I know it's launch day, so you're probably super busy, but thank you very much. Sarge and I both greatly appreciate it. To all the viewers out there, please, if you're not following Sarge and I, drop us a follow. We'd really appreciate it. Follows are free. Everybody else, thank you for participating in the Tavern Forum. This is exactly encapsulating what we want to do. We want it to make it like we're all at a meetup, right? It just happens to be virtually, but we appreciate everybody's contributions today. And I feel it was a great stream. We got a lot of good tidbits and information from Cordo. He was very, very, very organic and transparent. I just want to thank him very much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here. It's always fun.
Thank you very much, sir.
So
I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in. So with that being said, our next episode will be episode 5. That will be on the 28th of August. As always, Warhammer, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I enjoy doing this with you, my brother. All the community, thank you all for coming out. Cozy, Nacho, everybody. I appreciate y'all coming back. So until next time, y'all take care, and we'll see y'all later. Take care.